Chased, bashed and kicked. That was the fate that PLA troops met after the clashes with Indian troops at Arunachal Pradesh's Tawang sector. Following the clash, India is not drawing the red line further for Chinese President Xi Jinping. The Indian Air Force will conduct an exercise in the eastern sector of the country on Thursday and on Friday. The Indian Air Force fighter jets, drones, transport fleet and helicopters are going to be a part of Operation Readiness exercise. While the exercise predates the clash at Yangtse, it assumes significance in the wake of the friction. Meanwhile, DG of Indo-Tibetan Border Police to visit Arunachal after Tawang incident. ITBP DG visits all the areas of Arunachal to assess ITBP border deployment and will hold discussions with the commanders on the security points. The MHA is going to report to the border management after ITBP DG's visit to Arunachal. Gaurav is now joining us live for the very latest. Gaurav, you are at the epicenter of all that happened. The MHA also is going to be reporting to the border management after the ITBP DG's visit to Arunachal. What is planned at the moment? What is the situation as we speak?
You know, there are two very critical things that have happened. One, there is some movement that is taking place of troops from within this area, given the fact that the Chinese are now increasing their numbers along the line of actual control. That's the information that has come in from the highest quarters in the national security establishment, that along the line of actual control in Arunachal Pradesh, the Chinese are deployed in good strength, and that would mean that this wasn't a one-off and that other measures will need to be taken in terms of quicker deployment of men and material. And this is where the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force and their joint operations, along with deployment of Indo-Tibetan Border Police in certain sectors, becomes extremely critical. So two aspects here. One, the Indian Air Force begins a major exercise on the 15th and 16th of December. And this is, of course, the Eastern Air Command exercise. While the focus remains validation of some of their concepts, what's extremely critical are the assets that are being deployed for this exercise, including the Su-30 MKI air dominance fighters of the Indian Air Force, and along with the Su-30s, they have their helicopters for movement of men and material. That's being tested. They have their unmanned aerial vehicles, and those UAVs have played a very critical role in knowing what's happening on the other side of the hill, enabling quicker deployment of men and material. Simultaneously, what the army is also doing, according to our sources, is ensuring that any of the friction points or areas that may be seen as friction points or that can develop as a friction point, you already have adequate resources either in that area or at a central place where they can be moved to that area at short notice. And this is where this infrastructure push in Arunachal Pradesh becomes extremely critical, that we've been reporting through the day today, having assets on these roads, developing these roads, making those tunnels for quicker movement of men and material, Chetty.
So Gaurav, from what I understand from you, India is upping the war preparedness at the moment in the eastern sector as well. You are India's #1 reporter, war reporter right here. At the moment, what does the situation look like? And after upping the war preparedness, what difference are you expecting going forward?
So India is upping its preparedness. The better prepared you are, lesser are the chances of conflict. And that is something that is well known, because the adversary then realizes that it's not a cost-effective proposition for the adversary. What is the adversary trying to do in this situation? Chetty, on ground, this is the time that a lot of troop rotation takes place. Now they are trying to ensure that Indian forces remain deployed. Similarly, with India's aggressive stance along the line of actual control, the adversary has also been compelled to deploy his resources, because after Galwan, the adversary very well knows that there can be quid pro quo operations should there be a requirement from the Indian side. So it is not as if, China dominates or the adversary dominates and India is on the back foot. That clearly is not happening. point one. Point two, there are a lot of other things that are taking place simultaneously in this area in terms of ensuring that India is better prepared. But the infrastructure push that you and I have been talking about, the fact that the Sela tunnel, work on it was sanctioned in 2019, started in 2020 end or early 2021, is 80% complete in 2022, will be ready completely by 2023, shows the kind of attention that is being given. Then there is another very major project, Chaiti. Of course, it's in the pipeline right now, but it shows the intent that there will be a frontier highway that will come up, that will connect one end of Arunachal Pradesh to the other end of Arunachal Pradesh, and of course certain other parts also. Why does this frontier highway become very critical? Again, you can have your troops deployed in area A, their movement to area B, C, D, E, wherever they may be required, intra-valley movement or inter-valley movement becomes very easy. So overall, that big push to infrastructure is also being seen as the adversary. So the advantage that China may have is only for a limited window. Beyond that, India's economic might, military might and diplomatic might will continue to increase, and these pinpricks will not be cost effective for China. Even now, the adversary has well realized, as some of my sources point out, they may have tried something, but they were overwhelmed and they were beaten back. Will they take this line down? Perhaps not. They will try this in some other sector, and that is why preparations is on to ensure that India is better prepared, not just to react, but also to act, so that the enemy or the adversary reacts in any other sector. And that game, Chaiti, continues to be played.